but then I'll mix into this mastering chain. So that's a question, I hear come up every once in a while. Do you kind of like mix the song and then put your mastering stuff on, or do you mix into your master bus? Every engineer has a different approach. And like a song's fading out and you start to hear the noise floor, it's because I was over compressing with things like this. And that's an unprofessional move. When you hear air at the beginning or end of tracks, you won't hear that on a Metallica album. You won't hear that on a Guns N' Roses or an Elton John or a Lady Gaga album, because professionals know that that's unprofessional to have that. So word to the wise there. I did a test. I wasn't sure exactly what this plugin was doing to give me the overall volume. So what I did is I took some of my favorite mastered songs, Enter Sandman, Symphony of Destruction, Them Bones, great sounding professional mixes, and I just saw what they registered at. And I thought, all right, well, this is the pretty consistent level that they're at, in and around this range. I need to get my mixes there as well, while still sounding clean and without distorting. But let's get into this mastering chain here on my master bus. I think this is exciting. I remember when I was learning about it, I was stoked, and now that I have a system in place, I'm excited to share it with you guys. Hello, thanks for tuning in. This video is an excerpt from a previous video I made where I took you through all of my favorite plugins, demonstrating how and why I use them while recording, mixing, and mastering. I know mastering or finalizing your music and productions is an important topic to a lot of you out there, and in my original 43-minute video, I didn't get into the details of my mastering workflow until the latter half of that video, and so I think a lot of people may have missed that. Upon reviewing the video recently, though, I realized that there's a ton of super useful information I shared that you can apply to your own productions right away. And it's information I would have loved to have had 12 or 15 years ago when I was first starting out producing music. Creating music is a fun and exciting process every step of the way, but it's also a slippery slope, and oftentimes it's only experience that can get you to the next level. I hope sharing my experience with you here today can get you to where you envision yourself more quickly and easily. Let's go. So we're going to get into a lot of things here that I think a lot of you have a lot of questions about, and that's mastering chain, how to get that going, gluing a mix together, making it sound like everything is cohesive, recorded in the same place, and just fits together nicely. The first step of that for me is a trick I learned years ago, which is applying track verb to everything. So here it is, just a medium plate in its default, as I mentioned, and this is just an auxiliary track that I send my buses to, and I control it just a little bit. So my guitar bus has a little bit of verb on it that I can control individually because it's being sent to the track verb. Same with the solos. Most of the time, I'll do that, especially in bigger mixes, with everything. The vocal bus, the effects bus, the drum bus, I can send all that and apply different verbs. But what it does is it makes everything sound like it's part of the same space because I'm using one reverb and just a touch of it on everything. My drums, my vocals, my guitars, my bass, everything like that, and kind of brings it together and glues it together before sending it to the master bus. When I'm tracking and writing a song, I won't have any of this master bus processing active. But when I start mixing, I will bring all these things in, set up to the way I know that I like them already through years of experience. We'll talk about how I get to those places. But then I'll mix into this mastering chain. So that's a question, I hear come up every once in a while. Do you kind of like mix the song and then put your mastering stuff on, or do you mix into your master bus? Every engineer has a different approach. For the past many years now, I've been mixing into my master bus, but you don't want to have these things on just while you're tracking or like writing a song, because it could affect decisions, and a lot of these plugins are very processor intensive, causing latency and things like that. So I kind of wait till most of my tracking is done, almost all of it if possible, and then I head in and apply my master bus processing and start doing a bunch of tweaks and stuff across to make my mix. But the good thing is that because of the system, the mix is kind of already pretty much mixed. I just have to touch some stuff up and make it right. But let's get into this mastering chain here on my master bus. I think this is exciting. I remember when I was learning about it, I was stoked, and now that I have a system in place, I'm excited to share it with you guys. So the first thing in my master bus right now is what's called the Slate virtual mix rack. Totally unnecessary though. I'm going to explain why I use this and ways around it. The first thing in this chain is what's called a trimmer. Okay, don't worry about this stuff right now. What the trimmer does is it brings down the overall signal from everything being fed to it. Now remember that everything, if you look here, out 1, 2, and this is the input of this is 1, 2. So this is outputting to this. This is outputting to the master. Everything in here, these are all, individual guitar tracks are busing to the guitar bus, and then the bus buses to the master. So everything is coming out through the master track here. And because everything is summed together, drums, bass, guitars, no matter what it is, keys, vocals, everything like that, all of that audio is loud when it comes together. If you just solo a guitar track, it might not be loud, but combined with everything else, summed together into the master track, it gets very loud. So I can bring that full signal down with the trimmer before it hits any of these other important plugins in my chain. I don't want to just blow out my first compressor in the chain or blow out my EQs, so I need to bring down the gain of everything. Now, this is all part of gain staging. You don't want to just have it super loud going in your master bus and then think you could fix it with just a trimmer. You need to control these levels. Yes, when summed together, they're going to be louder than the headroom that you have there, and you'll need to bring it back with a trimmer. But as transparent as you can be with this, the better. So it's even better sometimes to bring your faders down of your buses, which would do the same thing as trimming it at this level. But as long as you don't have, I believe, any clipping or overloading in any of your plugins along the way, if you've been careful with your gain staging, then when it hits your master bus, it's controllable and transparent to bring it down with something like this. There's also a plugin, a stock Pro Tools one called Trim, wherever that is. Sorry, it's a multi-mono plugin, so which makes sense. So Trim, we just do the same thing. You can just bring down the overall signal being fed to it, and it's essentially doing the exact same thing that the Slate does. Then it goes to a mix bus thing, which I kind of think is like fool's gold. I don't know, it's supposed to like emulate a channel strip on a nice console. You know, honestly, like with a lot of the Slate stuff, I like Slate stuff, but a lot of it is just kind of like I said, like fool's gold. I don't really like plugins where when you just turn it on, things sound better without you knowing what it's doing to the audio. And that's what I feel happens a lot of the time with the Slate stuff, like this Revival right here. Sometimes I bring this in and it just adds a nice shimmer to the top end, or it can thicken up your bottom end. And when you get into doing too much stuff like that, where you're just kind of like magic pilling it with like this, you did all this work throughout your mix, gain staging, surgical EQ, all that kind of stuff, and then you're just gonna brighten it up with something that you have no idea what it's affecting, how it's affecting the high end in your cymbals versus your vocals, or you know, the top end of a snare drum, things like that. So it's, like I said, a magic pill because, oh yeah, it just sounds better. Probably because it's a little louder and a little clearer because it's got a little more, you know, high-end clarity or something because of that. So these can be tempting, but just be careful with them. I use these very sparingly, if at all, ever, but it just happens to be in this rack, you know, set up as a default and a palette that I can use if I like. And again, this mix bus stuff, just kind of, you could do the same thing as trimmer by bringing down your input signal, and just watch your meters. I just try to not let it live too much in the red. If I had this trimmer at 0, which I'll do right there, you'll see it'll just be maxed out. Which is destroying any plugin I have after these. These will look clipped now. I'm sure this is clipped. Oh, that's not one that you can see is clipped. Okay, well, at any rate, you saw that. I think I had that around there somewhere. Is there an undo on this? Oh yeah, there is. Boom. Oh well. Yeah, so I'll try to get it into the red a little bit, but I don't want it, you know, maxed out in that red at all. So that's the first thing, to get a nice signal to feed what I like next, a Desert Island bus processing plugin, which is the SSL comp, another Waves. Lots of companies make this one though. And watch what this is doing. It's just giving me about 2, maybe 3 dB of compression to the overall mix, which is more that glue we talked about, like the track verb. So a lot of the things that I try to do in my master bus is glue everything together, make it all sound cohesive in the mix, so no things pop out. Guys will a lot of times send me mixes to listen to, stuff like that. And the snare drum is just ridiculous because it has the ability to cut through a mix as opposed to like bass or something like that. So it's just crushing. But if you well, there's a lot of steps to take to properly get it to a place where the SSL compressor is going to be effective in the way it needs to be. But as long as you do that, then it's perfect. It adds subtle and transparent compression to the overall mix so that the snare seems at a nice level with the kicks and the guitars and everything like that based on what you're feeding it. So I try to only give it about 2 to 3 dB of compression. If it was all the way up in here in 12, then it would no longer be transparent. You'd hear it pumping as it's grabbing onto loud signals and pulling them down and then releasing them again until another loud signal hits, and then it brings it down real quick and everything like that. And that's controlled by ear attack and release. I have just moderate settings here going on. I have 3 dB of makeup gain, so whatever it compresses by 3 dB, it's also raising everything up by 3 dB. So what I like is to be able to bypass this while I'm listening, and you don't really hear that I'm bypassing it or not, but you know it's doing the job. It's just tightening up and gluing everything together a little bit. Let me stop this. We're not hearing the click track every time. Not much of a difference in terms of volume, but I hear a difference in the cymbals. Maybe it's the guitars that we're hearing the difference in, actually. So listen to the guitars are quieter when I have it bypassed. You hear a lot of the cymbals, now the guitars will come up. So it's just evening everything out quite a bit. These like analog buttons and stuff, supposed to add some analog warmth. That's another one of those things, like the magic pill type thing to me, where I don't know what it's doing when I hit that analog, so I don't use that. I just use a 4-to-1 ratio, and as you adjust the ratio and the attack and release and the threshold, you'll see the amount of compression based on what you're feeding this through all your tracks will affect the amount of gain reduction that's happening. And you want to try to get that in, at least I like, under 4 dB. Then makeup gain, again, to bring up everything you're pulling back. You bring that up again with 3 dB here, and you're good to go. Next in the chain, we go to multi-band compression. And what this is, another set of glue, or another type of glue that's affecting only certain frequencies in different bands. So how I like to set this up, here I'm actually going to just make another one and I'll show you exactly how I set it up. It's super easy. It's quite complex as a matter of fact, but what I do is pretty easy. So I'm gonna bring in, this is the Waves multi-band compressor, but there's lots of companies that make multi-band compression. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna watch these faders here. This is the low mids, mid, high mids, and master, or maybe I got that wrong. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, low, mid, high mids, and highs. And then this is the master, okay? So let's watch the signals here. They're all fairly even right now because I've done a good job in my pre-mixing. Can listen to certain things. Let's just listen to the lowest of the low end. Let's listen to the low mids. So it's just separating, same thing, right? Certain parts, certain frequency spectrums of my mix. This kind of looks like that EQ. It is basically like an EQ, a dynamic EQ though, and it's compression only in certain ranges. So I like to take out some of the fizz in the mid-range. I cut a little bit of high end off there so it isn't too sharp in spots, but then I'm gonna add high end back end later. So anyways, I've found that I don't adjust these unless I need to individually, but I take the master and I pull it down till everything is about touching these faders. Watch, you're gonna see these arrows all come down together. And the amount of compression there you can see as these dips are happening in this yellow line is very subtle. So we're breaking out some low mids there, bringing some down. Bringing all down a little more of this mid-range here. I'm sorry. These high mids right here where a lot of the guitars live. And then another good thing that it's doing right here, every once in a while I'll bring these lows down more. And what's that doing? When double kicks start happening, that creates a lot of low end energy that could start to muddy up and overpower your mix. So you could compress all that, but it'll compress everything. But with a multi-band compressor, you can bring down just the low end there. Double bass is happening. If we bring that down, it'll clamp down when double bass happens, depending on where you have that set. And it's beautiful because let's say you got some big stomp part, boom, ga, boom, it's gonna let those through, boom. But if you start doing double bass, and all that low end energy starts accumulating like that, it'll bring that back down, keeping it at an even keel. So again, what it's doing is things that are popping out, it's gluing everything back together and making your mix sound more consistent. So I'm sure, let's see what I got there, 28, 23 or 28, I can't read that. Let's see how I had the one set up before. .24, yeah, I had the other one at 23.8 or something like that, and this is at 24. So exact same thing. I'm gonna get rid of that new one I did there, and here it is. Let's see, I'll do a little bypass, see if you notice any difference. It's gonna be very, very subtle, but it'll be really a reduction of some high mids and control of that low end. And you might even say, oh, it's a little bit louder when I have it bypassed. And it is. I'm not really doing any makeup gain here. So it's compressing some of those some of the upper dynamic range of my entire signal there, but that's okay. It's smoothing things out and it's smoothing out some very subtle harshness in the mix that's tiring to the ears over time. So when you're listening to an album that doesn't have any sort of delicate multiband compression put on this, it can become more tiring to the ears. So a tool like this, used properly, makes music more pleasing and easier to listen to. More of an advanced thing. Took me a long time to wrap my head around. Next thing here is just kind of a magic pill thing. One of these tape saturation plugins. Again, what is this doing? So it's one of those things where you have it on, you're like, do I like that better? I think I like that better, but I'm not quite sure. Oh, in this case, I'm making up more of my volume with this. So the volume had been reduced first with the trimmer in the virtual mix rack, the Slate virtual mix rack. Then it's being compressed a little bit, but I have makeup gain going back on there. Then the volume's being brought down yet again through the multiband compression. And then I bring my volume back up again with this Ampex ATR 102. There's lots of tape saturation plugins. And what I say, it's one of those magic pills things because who knows what it's really doing in terms of this digital realm and stuff like that. So I just kind of trust it. I've tried messing around with different tape speeds and bias and stuff like that, but that's a hornet's nest of possibility and stuff that I just can't wrap my head around. So I keep it pretty much at its default setting. I believe I took crosstalk off or something like that because maybe I thought one day that sounded better. And then with this particular plugin, you would think that this is the output and this is the input, but it's actually switched. This is the input and this is the output. So I'm watching my input signals, making sure they're not clipping, and my output, and I try to bring back as much volume as I can, thinking it's a better volume to bring back. Rather than bringing up the fader, this particular, these tape saturation plugins are supposed to add nice harmonic distortion and things to your signal to make them more pleasing, more analog sounding, more authentic, and more real. So I'm just trusting that it's doing that. But watch my faders. Just like in the VMR. Just like in the VMR, they're just kind of kissing the red there, okay? So that's all perfect. It's gain staged very well so far, but would it be to industry standard in terms of level? We'll get there. Next, for years now, I've just been adding a little, this is a half dB, typically a half dB to 2 dB of a little bit of a high-end presence to my mix overall after all is said and done here. Bypass. So just even that little half dB there, see that? Just I got a little half dB shelf at 6K, and that just brings a little sheen that I like and that I notice is missing if I don't have it on there. So it's the final step there before I bring it up to level. So this is my final Desert Island plugin, the L1 limiter. This thing is great because it's a brick wall limiter. It won't let anything clip. That's why you'll never see my master bus clip because I have it set to -0.3 dB of my out ceiling. So I used to set it at -1, but I heard sometimes that even some things can slip past that. If you're unsure what I'm talking about, you don't want it to cross 0 dB or unity in your track, because then it's clipping or overloading. You want to keep everything underneath that. You wanted to get it to sound as powerful and loud as you can before it clips. So one way to prevent that is by bringing this down. But this is one of those other things that you need to use sparingly. You can't be too dangerous. If you need to bring this down significantly or compress significantly, that means you need to go back into your mix and readjust your gain staging so that this is getting a nice undistorted signal. You could also use this within your mix. I use it all the time on a guitar bus, on a bass bus, on a vocal bus, things like that, to make sure that that particular bus isn't clipping. But again, if things are just getting pushed into it super hard and then you're just going to compress it with this, it won't be as transparent. You'll hear that things are being compressed. I remember back in the day, a lot of my mixes would have a lot of shh at the beginnings and the end. You can't hear that shh going on when music's playing, but at the beginning or the end of a song, like a song's fading out and you start to hear the noise floor, shh, it's because I was over compressing with things like this. And that's an unprofessional move when you hear air at the beginning or end of tracks. You won't hear that on a Metallica album. You won't hear that on a Guns N' Roses or an Elton John or a Lady Gaga album, because professionals know that that's unprofessional to have that. So word to the wise there. So then once I set my ceiling there, then my threshold is my overall volume, how loud it's going to get. We'll play with this a little bit, and you'll see how much gain reduction, this attenuation right here, how much gain reduction is happening. Look at that. Barely any, 1 to 2. That's well gain staged in my opinion. To bring it up to 4, and if we were to bring in a meter for how loud we are here, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know a ton about this, but on this particular plugin, I aim for around 8 or 9 or 10, negative 8, 9 or 10 LUFS, which is just a certain unit of measurement. You can set up all sorts of different units of measurements for this thing, but that's just, I did a test. I wasn't sure exactly what this plugin was doing to give me the overall volume. So what I did is I took some of my favorite mastered songs, Enter Sandman, I don't know, Symphony of Destruction, Them Bones, and stuff like that. Great sounding professional mixes, and I just saw what they registered at. And I thought, all right, well, this is the pretty consistent level that they're at, in and around this range. I need to get my mixes there as well, while still sounding clean and without distorting. So I found that was generally between 7 and 11, 8 and 10, somewhere in there. And this is an average. So that's good. And I found that at negative 4 dB for my threshold, but let's adjust this and you'll hear it get louder. But look at that distortion because of how much is getting reduced there. You hear that distortion? So I'll go back to 4. It's nice and clean. Notice how no reduction is being done right now because it's just a guitar track playing. No drums, no bass. Once these kick in, here we go. Another nice rule of thumb is look at your signals there and you bring your threshold down just to the top of the signals. It's a great technique for all sorts of compression. So I'm bringing this down to the top of there. Just kissing it. Now anything passing this is what's being attenuated. Well, still, nothing is over my ceiling. Nothing will ever breach that ceiling. It'll never get to 0 dB here, or just under it. It'll only come to negative 3. And you can see how much gain reduction over here in Pro Tools is being applied, this downward fader there, by everything I've got going on along here. By the way, if you like this song, it's a song I wrote that I'm calling The Virtuoso for the demo I made of the new Jackson Virtuoso. So I have a video on that, which you'll see pop up on the screen here if you'd like to check that out. And I also have a jam bundle available. You can get it at robarnoldworld.com/store that has the backing tracks, guitar tablature, Guitar Pro, video demonstration of me playing it, all that stuff, as well as other songs that I've done for other guitar demos and stuff like that. But every single one of those was created using this exact same system, this exact same template, and so they all sound consistent like that. And it's really a great thing. You know, I could spend another couple hours going over the template and more in depth, and I'm sure a lot of you guys that have made it this far, thank you for that, have a lot of questions about routing and gain staging and stuff like that. But I thought just as a place to start, this just showing you some of the plugins that I like might help you on your way. More about that in a second. But let me know if you want more of this stuff, because I am actually thinking of doing a course just on in-depth audio production, my methods for everything to create these songs, including templates and that sort of thing if you like them. And I try to make it so everything I talk about, every principle and method can be applied to any DAW, any plugin, all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Oh, and about the plugins, again, if you liked any of these, like I said, I recommend them all. I think most of them are available at Sweetwater. The ones like the Pro Tools stock ones, every DAW has their own version of that. It's kind of the same, but if you want to get some of these Waves ones or UA or whatever like that, recording month until October 31st, 2023, you get that free UA LA compressor bundle, which is definitely cool. Not necessary, but cool, so check that out. And again, I'll have a link for you that'll take you straight to that plugin page in the recording month sales. Right now, using that link helps me out and the channel. And if you're interested in even more, I got a Patreon campaign that I'd love for you to become a part of, with early looks at my videos, behind the scenes content, all the jam bundles for free, hear my new music first, all that kind of stuff. Also a guitar instructional DVD shipping right now with 10 free picks. So check out everything in the description below. Everything I got in there, and again, using my links really helps the channel. I appreciate everybody that watched, and I hope you guys enjoy this type of stuff. Please let me know if you'd like more of it, because this is actually kind of my favorite stuff to do. It's just that I know it's such a niche market. There's, you know, I doubt this is going to be a very popular video, but I know it'll be evergreen because there are guys all the time that are looking for this type of information, and I hope to be able to share some of the knowledge that I've gained over the years. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. If you are, if you've been a rider on the bandwagon for a minute here, I appreciate you. I appreciate all the interaction, all the thumbs up, the subscriptions, all the love the positivity. Thanks so much, guys. Rob Arnold signing off. Hope to see you again for more.